Don't get it next week.
So, starting just about 7 on the dot, and welcome to, I think we can call the annual council meeting. I don't know if it's a carry on from yesterday. It doesn't really matter. We'll do the main business here tonight. So welcome to everybody. And Mel, if you'll start it off, please, with apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies received from councillors Mike Cole, Lourdes Cottam, Ellen Crumley, David Lister and Jennifer Walker.
Several of those headed off on holiday yesterday. Just stayed for the event. So, thank you for that. Item 2, are there any declarations? None. Thank you. Item 3, I'm delighted to have invited Karen Reeve, lead volunteer for asylum seekers. We've had a lot of conversations in here amongst ourselves regarding the asylum seekers at the Regency Park Hotel. And I know, Karen, we've spoken several times on the phone. If you come forward, Karen is going to give us a presentation, take some questions. I think Karen will tell you she's been in the Regency Park Hotel several times a week for some weeks. Sort of perhaps come around here, so you want the spotlight. You want the spotlight.
Thank you.
And I think Karen will tell you she's also putting in a good exchange bid to us. So get ready to receive.
Yes, should you be wishing to vote when in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Good evening, and I'm glad to say I've recognised some faces from my time when I used to work for West Berkshire Council, so it's like old times. I used to work in children's services, so just to remind people who are saying, I know the face, but I can't. Yes, I retired about 3, maybe nearly 4 years ago now, and decided that I probably need to do some volunteering, and got involved with a number of projects, including back in February, when I heard locally, I live in Thatcham, that suddenly had appeared 120 young people, mostly from a number of places around the world, at the Regency Park Hotel, which was creating at the time a little bit of a stir. I volunteering for West Berkshire Action for Refugees, who had actually been a charity around for quite some time, 2015, primarily supporting and collecting aid for projects abroad and across the country, and campaigned in 2015-16 to bring 10 Syrian families to the area and to be supported, which actually the charity was successful in doing with West Berkshire Council at the time. And then likewise, when the Afghan crisis hit particularly, they also agreed with the council to support a number of resettled, making the distinction, resettled Afghan families, as opposed to some quite now a large number of Afghan nationals who have made their own way to the country, who are now supported under a completely different scheme. Indeed, the same scheme that the 120 refugees, asylum seekers, terminology right, they are asylum seekers and not refugees, based at Regency Park. So we got the call and fairly rapidly recognised that they had literally nothing. They arrived with generally a pair of flip-flops, white issue from the Home Office, and a grey tracksuit bottom and grey tracksuit top, and usually nothing else other than sometimes a mobile phone which they clutched tightly to them in a plastic bag to ensure they've got some form of communication back home. So we, with Care for Calais actually, who have a branch across Thames Valley, but this has been the furthest out of Thames Valley they've ever been, really we're struggling in order to provide enough support for these young people. So we agreed to work with Care for Calais and fairly rapidly did a big distribution of an emergency, if you like, clothes. And then we managed to, along with Greenham Trust, who kindly lent us an empty shop at Northbrook Street, collect in another, what's turned out to be, we think, about 200 pairs of jeans, about 400 T-shirts, 100 sets of trainers, toiletries, you name it. We've collected it in order to provide at least what we've now been able to do and what we think we've got more or less 2 pairs of clothes, 2 pairs of trainers, although we're still about 30 short on that target. At least they've all got clean underwear, brand new underwear, but everything else is donated. So it's been fabulous in terms of the support that we've had from the local community. It's really, although we had, and you'll have picked up on the social media, some individuals who were frankly racist, who were worried about what these people would bring, etc., but by and large, the majority of the response has just been fabulous. I mean, people have been really wonderful. So a massive mobilisation. We, our charity, literally, it was made up of 3 trustees and 2 workers. We've had to grow exponentially over the last few months. We now have about 40 volunteers, all police checked, referenced and trained, which is indeed why I'm rushing off tonight in order to provide some further safeguarding training for a group of 20. So we've supported these new volunteers to be in place. So we are now attending the Regency at least 4 times a week, offering yoga, football, 3 English groups, we call them, because they're conversational groups where we sit and play games, talk, share activities. Football. We've also got Care for Cali and ourselves in partnership running a formal English class on Tuesday mornings, which is a formal lesson type approach. Just trying to get their basic what we're calling emergency English. I'm not certainly ESOL trained, although a number of our volunteers are. We've been fortunate enough already to get £2,000 from the Greenham Trust. We're coming to you, hopefully in the next week, to see if we can get some more, frankly, because that money is going towards practical educational support. If I tell you an English-Arabic dictionary is £10. So just getting things like that is quite expensive. And we want more formal courses, language resources, etc. We could also do with some support around mental health needs, which although the health authority has been actually very initially weren't, but now very responsive to having 120 new patients arrive at Thatcham medical practice. And we also need things like ongoing toiletries and things, just things like deodorant or whatever. These guys, until they're formally registered with the Home Office, have no access to any funds whatsoever, not a single penny. When they do get formally recognised as being here, and if I tell you they've been here since January, and only some of them now have this first initial recognition, that was done in around August, Easter, they then get £8.36, I think it is, a week, which is to buy toiletries, any food treats that they want, clothes, any medication that's not prescribed. So they get £8. Once they get their asylum claim accepted, they then get £40 a week. But they're months off of that. We've had people based in Calcott who have been with us for 2 years, still awaiting that level of paperwork. So these guys are likely to be living on £8 a week for some time to come, hence our need to be there to offer some practical assistance when they need it. We've been asked where they're from, mostly from Syria, some Afghans, the Afghans that didn't get formally settled through the government scheme, so they come through exactly the same process as everybody else. Sudan, Eritrea, Iran, a large proportion of El Salvadorians. I had to look up what's happening in El Salvador to understand why they were all here. Mostly women from El Salvador. When you look it up on Google, you'll find out why. And a few waifs and strays, Chechnya and others. Most have some English because this is where they've been. That's what they were learning when they were at home. You know, the second language for most of these countries was learning a different language, was English. And so they feel they have a tie here. So they've come here. I can't divulge personal stories, but let's just say that it's been harrowing for some of our staff to hear some of their tales about how they've got here. you know, our primary focus is to provide somewhere that actually has got a bit of love. These are kids, 20, 30-year-olds, some practical assistance where they need it and some educational support. So I won't ramble, I'll stop and let you ask me questions.
Before I take the first question, you were telling me on the phone the things that they needed.
Yes.
You were saying they were playing football in flip-flops down at Lowaway Sports.
They are. Yes.
Tell us a few more things
Yeah.
they might need.
So they're playing in flip-flops because they now have one second-hand pair of trainers, which they consider to be for best. So they don't want to ruin them playing football. So we're trying to get second pairs of trainers for them. So we need anybody who's got spare trainers, sizes 7, 8, 9, particularly. So yes, so football, trainers. I've got a little list here of things. How can I forget? Here we go, I'll find them. Actually, interestingly enough, snacks. If you've got sweets and biscuits and stuff, obviously unopened, that sort of stuff, or if you want to just donate a couple of quid, frankly, we'll buy some, because they get 3 meals a day, but and they do get snacks in between them, but that's fruit and yogurt. If you're a 20-year-old, 30-year-old fella, you want something different, right? So second-hand t-shirts, particularly summer weather, we made sure they've got a warm coat and some sweatshirts and hoodies. And now, obviously, in the middle of summer, not quite there yet, but on a warmer day, they need something a little bit simpler. We also need things like bike locks and bike helmets. We've got a bicycle project, Wesley, somewhere here, who has managed to potentially get us a bike rack. So we're going to teach them cycle proficiency because they're concerned about letting them on the roads without some level of support and training with helmets, and they then sign out the bike for a day or a couple of hours or whatever. So so we're going to need those.
Is that children and adults helmets?
It's young men, so 20-year-olds, so adult helmets.
All adult helmets, yeah.
Just trying to think whether the women would be more petite. Then we have got some petite size.
Yeah.
What else? Pens, paper, writing pads. They are very, very keen to learn. They literally come with pad and pen, and they want to learn how to speak English. We've just actually agreed with Newbury College, they're coming to assess them on Thursday. They've been incredibly quick to respond, because once they're here 6 months, they're allowed to college can access government funds in order to teach them further English. So we are getting them all signed up and ready for that before the 6 months. So they're ready to run.
And you said to me something about they want to do work.
Yes.
And I talked to you about ground clearing, gardening.
Yes.
Because the boredom factor must be huge.
They've even offered to clean the hotel. So they want things to do. They are not allowed to work. They're not allowed to do anything that earns money until they've got their formal papers. So they are literally kicking the heels. And they're very respectful now when they're out on the streets. They've actually been taught to they step aside when other people walk towards them and stuff, because they've been aware that they were treated with some suspicion when they first arrived. So, but yes, they want to volunteer. So, but the challenge around volunteering is they can't do anything that requires a DBS, because obviously they can't get DBSs. They can't do anything that's with vulnerable people per se unless they're supervised. So we need projects that have somebody who's maybe willing to stay with them, maybe willing to pick them up at the hotel because they've got no access to transport, they can't get bus passes. So somebody can pick them up in a car, take them, stay with them, bring them back. And if they're out for all day, they need packed lunches because they're not allowed to take meals out of the hotel. They get their lunches, all 3 meals, in a brown paper bag, which they have to take back to their room because there's no communal space for them to eat. And they're not allowed to pick up their lunch early, so if they can't take it out with them, see what I mean? But any volunteering opportunities that you
Let's open it up as we questions. I'm conscious of the time. Jeremy Cole.
Yes, thank you. I'm here relaying a message from Councillor Lourdes Cotton, who also happens to be a Spanish speaker, so there may be some connection there.
Yes.
Basically, she got together with some of the people, and the feedback is there's just huge gratitude towards the community and the support from all of them. And I'd like to also say their safety. Now, we think safety and we talk about El Salvador, look it up, as you said, we come to lives at risk. So, whatever issues there are here, they are absolutely feel that they're safe in our community, and hence the gratitude and the support for all of the community. Only one minor issue that arose is the just maybe you could assist us about some catering issues that we could maybe discuss outside.
Yeah, there certainly were some catering issues. The food is bussed in, so to speak, from Ealing, West London, and en masse. I mean, there are limited numbers of companies who are prepared to provide 3 meals a day in whatever. So it wasn't ideal. It has improved. In fairness to the catering company, they have done a lot of work.
So people are aware of some issues. Thank you.
We are treading the line between supporting the hotel to provide a good service without being too critical and
exactly my
relying on them giving us access. At the end of the day, we're a charity with no right to access them.
Fine, thank you very much.
Councillor Richard Crumley.
Thank you. What instruction do these Afghans and Syrians get in respect of British law, British culture, British religion, and the like?
So we are supporting them around, and I personally am doing some English culture sessions with them when we run the English group. So we've talked about how men behave towards women here, how young women can keep themselves safe in the community, how the health service works here, and the health service in the current context, I should say, because you can talk about free access, NHS, etc. But actually, we now need to talk to them about how the waiting lists work, and that you can't get a GP appointment today. You can go and ask for one, but it might be 3 weeks' time or whatever. So those sorts of conversations, and a whole range of things like that. So,
Councillor Richard Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for a very interesting presentation, and I'd like to just support what you say about the friendliness and respectfulness of them. I have had the privilege of transporting some of them to the Midland Centre, and so I've had up to 15 in a bus with me, and they're delightful and very respectful. I just have a simple question. If those of us in this room go home and find that we've got, as I know, we've got lots of pairs of trainers that nobody seems to use, do we take them to the shop in Newbury, or where should
we only had to shop for 6 weeks. We now have nowhere to store anything.
So,
however, I don't know if it's allowed to act as a centre point here for you guys specifically, and I can come and pick them up from here, or message me and I'll pick them up from your homes. I'm literally driving around the borough.
I think we could take a few boxes. I think it gets to 50 boxes. I can remember Councillor Cotton's office stopping it off.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
But I think we could.
Well, I can assure you my study at the moment looks rather like a warehouse.
You may use my office for this as well.
Thank you.
So you've got.
Councillor.
Yes, thank you very much for that. That was really interesting. Are we, in terms of the demographic, are we talking about mostly people in the older teens and the 20s? I'm just interested in, other some with higher professional qualifications in their own countries.
Absolutely, there is a complete range. So mostly, I would say, trying to do this out of my head, mostly 20s. A few, the women, the El Salvadorians tend to be slightly more demographic. And there's a few married couples. In terms of education levels, we have a couple of doctors, a teacher, or at least one teacher. I now know most of them, but not all 120 of them. I know at least probably 70 or 80 of them now, fairly well enough to know the names. So there is a complete range. Very keen to get on with getting their papers so they can come out and be productive. There's equally some who don't have particular skills as we would recognise, but are absolutely wanting to work in hospitality or with old people's homes, etc., who are keen to do whatever.
And is there a point at which, once they've cleared a certain hurdle, they will then be able to apply for jobs openly?
They need to have their asylum status accepted, and then they are allowed to work. So, what our focus at the moment is, well, was originally emergency English. So if they got stuck somewhere, they could at least say where they were and what they needed. And now basic English, although I'd say probably maybe a third speak good English, less so written. And maybe equally a third who have not a lot of English, but are, say, the most motivated group of young people I think I've met in terms of wanting to learn and understand and be able to write.
Before I take council down, are there televisions in the rooms?
They have very basic television sets. The hotel removed their smart TVs, so they can't access internet or anything. So they have very basic television. So
there's no communal area they can watch football?
No. We're teaching them a cricket, by the way. The cricket club has offered a session.
Oh, excellent.
They can't be worse than England.
And Afghanistan played in the World Cup. Thank you, sir.
Actually, it was on culture, and if people are going to have to be settled here for prolonged periods for their paperwork, then there's a real chance for us as a community to understand their cultures as well. And in October, we have the Festival of Arts and Leisure, which is all about all different organisations in the town sharing what they do and their different cultures. And it'd be lovely if we could try and work with you and with them to be able to, share some of their experiences, although they are harrowing, and it needs to be trauma informed, how we don't get them just to relive their own trauma over and over. But actually, like saying Google El Salvador, we shouldn't have to. Those type of things people should know about. They matter in the world. So I think it'd be great if we could do some type of cultural exchange piece in a way around the festival.
Certainly the El Salvadorian ladies are desperate to cook.
Yeah.
And they have no cooking facilities there. So I think they would be happy to share cooking one of their traditional dishes with them.
And I think we've got in November in Qatar, we've got the World Cup. And football has such power to bring people together. I think we need to look at venues we can put on so that they can come. Well, you just ruined it. You just ruined it. But no, like us using the Birdwood or Frank Hall or something like that and putting the match on for them, and I'll happily stand guard that night, sort of thing. And be the responsible person or whatever needed. As long as it's not England, something. Might have had a few.
Councillor Boyd?
Yeah, it's just a quick one, really. Councillor Cottam mentioned that his wife is a Spanish speaker. I know another Spanish speaker. Where would people go to volunteer to help?
So we have a Facebook page, which is called West Berkshire Action for Refugees. On there's a link to a form. If you're just filling in whoever's name and what skills they may have. And it doesn't have to be traditional skills. We have got people from a very wide range of skills, but who are happy to spend time talking to young people, basically. So on there, if not, if you're not on Facebook, people can email me. I'll send you my email address. We can make connections there. So Spanish speakers, El Salvador is obviously Spanish speaking. Anybody who's Persian or Arabic speakers also equally welcome. Although appreciate that what we're trying to do is get them to speak English. So in the English club we say, right, no, English only. So we do, although we do rely fairly heavily on Google when we get particularly stuck on understood. So, I sat today with two young men who just sat looking at me, and I said, "Is there something you want?" And they go, "No, we're just listening to you talk. We want to hear how it sounds." Like, okay.
You did also say they won't necessarily settle locally. No. If they are successful in their...
If they're successful, they're what they're called dispersed, and some of the Afghan families, the people who were invited here for settlement, have actually been dispersed as far as Scotland. So, so although they may get agreement to be here, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll get housed in. For obvious reasons, we don't have a lot.
No, but I think that's important from the public perception that they won't end up living necessarily in Thatcham, and that was perhaps the anxiety which led to the bad behaviour that we've got another 120 people who are going to be living here on and on. They're not. But, you know, I just think that's helpful for people to know. Anybody else? Well, Karen, that's been terrific. Thank you. We'll stay in touch.
Yep.
We've got an idea of what you need.
Mhm.
The exchange will go in.
Yeah,
That will
thank
go
you.
through the process.
Lovely.
But
Thank you very much for
grateful to
your
you.
time. Apologies for running
Time
on.
was good.
Yes, it's perfect. We got the line at 20 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
They don't get to 7, but after living here for 2 years, understanding the geography, the people, you know, thanks, Kelly.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.
Okay. I can't get used to not suspending standing. I don't know how I'm going to get used to this. Yeah, quite. So I've now got public questions. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. And then the minutes of the last meeting. Publicly. Happily, I was there, so I will be able to sign them, I'm sure. So proposed, Councillor?
So proposed, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Foster. Thank you very much. All those in favour of signing the minutes on? Thank you very much. Okay. One? Yeah. Thank you. We then come to more of the meat of the meeting, so to speak. Item 6, the local plan review, and I believe this is a response from council. You want to, introduce it? Thank you.
So members may recall discussion at a previous full council meeting, and it was agreed to write to Councillor Sumner, the portfolio holder, with regard to planning, to request a parish planning action group to discuss the proposed North East Thatcham development. I contacted Councillor Sumner and the response received is as printed in the agenda.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Dillon, Councillor Jeffrey, Councillor Pike. In that order.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must say that thank you, Mel, for passing the letter on to the portfolio holder. I think that the time it took to respond was quite delayed, and I think there was some chasing to be able to get the response. If I'm wrong, I'll withdraw that remark, but I believe we were. And what that does, Mr. Mayor, actually, is it indicates what I believe has been West Berkshire Council's approach to the local plan, in particular, engagement with Thatcham community, council and its residents, of doing it at the last possible moment so that they can tick the boxes that they need to, so that they can expedite their local plan submission to its regulation phase. In the letter, Mr. Chairman or Mr. Mayor, it talks about setting a precedent. I would have hoped that West Berkshire Council would want to set a precedent where they go out and they engage with a town if they're on about increasing it by 25%. I mean, you can go through this line by line, Mr. Mayor, and counteract Councillor Sumner's comments in here. But as I said at the start, it shows what West Berkshire's approach has been like throughout. It does need a response, and I'll propose later on a way forward for that, Mr. Mayor. But I know also Councillor Pike has got concerns with this engagement, particularly in light of best practice. And I think he might come on to that now. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I want to get a couple of words onto the record. We're looking at this letter. It's feeble and it's disappointing. 2,500 homes are proposed for Thatcham, and apparently the portfolio holder doesn't think that it's appropriate to even discuss it with the town council in any kind of formal way. I think that is feeble and disappointing, and I think that the portfolio member should be ashamed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this response came as a great surprise to me. Where all councils are required to produce a document called a Statement of Community Involvement. And once they've agreed it, they're required to follow it. So I'd like to compare the response with what the Statement of Community Involvement says. Councillor Somner said, while I appreciate that there would be merit increasing engagement with all stakeholders engaged in the local plan process, the suggested approach is likely to set a precedence and increase expectation from other stakeholders. Statement of community involvement states, West Berkshire Council already has strong and valued links with many of its local communities. Greater involvement by the community in shaping the way the planning system operates locally is essential if decisions we take are to more closely reflect local needs and wishes. So going back to what Councillor Somner said, in addition, it would be premature to engage with stakeholders until the Planning Advisory Group has completed its consideration of all Regulation 18 responses. What the Statement of Community Involvement says, as part of the continued preparation of the West Berkshire Local Plan and its supportive documents, we acknowledge the importance of involving the public and stakeholders at the earliest possible stage and recognise that their involvement should be a continuous process rather than one discrete exercise. And then finally, the traditional approach, he says, would be to engage via a coordinated engagement strategy around the publication of the report to council, which is effectively has a deadline of 6 weeks. And then, of course, as I read earlier, the statement of community involvement requires a continuous process. So there appears to be an inconsistency between the response of Councillor Somner and the requirements of the statement of community involvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pike. I believe happy to move things forward, Councillor Dillon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think given my remarks, Councillor Jeffrey's remarks, I think I saw more nodding heads with that sentiment than against. I think Councillor Pike has shown some clear policy documents that are adopted by West Berkshire Council. And actually, I think we should use that as a way of basing our response back to Councillor Somner. And what I would suggest, Mr. Mayor, is it's delegated to the Chair of Planning, Leader of Council to draft a response.
Yeah. Does that find a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Pike. All those in favour of that approach? Thank you. Oh. And one abstention, I believe. Thank you. Okay, so an item concluded. Bad debt write-off number 7. You might recall we carried this forward from the last meeting. And the RFO has put a paper in on this of the latest position. Councillor Dillon, like to speak?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Cole and Councillor Lister asked me to pick up on this report in their absence this evening. This document and the wider debate went to Finance and General Purposes a couple of weeks ago as well. And there was a thorough debate about the role of the council in supporting local businesses, particularly start-up local businesses, versus the risk that we accept as a council. And I think what you have before you in the recommendations, Mr. Mayor and councillors, is a position that balances that approach. So you can see that we provide assurances going forward that any request for credit above £500 requires due diligence in the form of evidence of creditworthiness. This particular business was obviously a main client of us, given that it was to do with burials. But I think what we have, Mr. Mayor, is a sound approach, which is not to continue to chase the debt, through legal fees or officer time, to be honest with you, but also to put some additional safeguards in to make sure that we don't have a balance like that to bring back to council in the future.
Is that a proposal? That's
a proposal to adopt officer's recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Crumley?
Can I just say a few words, Mr. Mayor? I note that paragraph 3, the final paragraph says the council's election processes have worked well historically. In the past 5 years, £74 has been written off. Well, I was in business once for 35, 40 years or so. If I only had £74 bills unpaid over a 5-year period, I'd be very pleased indeed. So that's a pretty good, not to say very, very good return. I have mentioned before on respect to the final recommendation. Okay, checking out the creditworthiness and statements of account and so on is fine if you're dealing with a small limited company. but I repeat my suggestion that if you're dealing with a small limited company, you get the directors or some individual to act as a guarantor of the debt. So if the debt is unpaid, you've got two people to sue. That's the legal entity of the limited company, which is the one that goes bust, and the individual himself, who could be sued separately. So it's a good idea, but it's a council don't take it.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we could take that away and look to adopt it into future processes when the policy is next due for renewal, and then take on board Councillor Crumley's comments, experience in that area.
So we have a proposal. Do I have a seconder for that proposal, please? I've got Councillor Jeffrey. Thank you. So I'll put that to the vote now then. And the avoidance of doubt, we will write the debt off in the books so that we can complete our accounts for the year and tighten up the process. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. But the next one is the interim internal.
We've actually had our year-end audit carried out today, but there was a slight delay in getting the interim report over to us, but so a small number of observations, and the RFO has the comments in the final column here. So the first one merely being an admin error, miscoding, and that has now been adjusted for the year end. And we'll look to perhaps do some internal training for the year that we are just going into now. The petty cash, because we now run a prepayment card, we don't really use petty cash at all. So the recommendation from the internal auditor is to close the petty cash account, and that's something that we'll do during this financial year.
Can I just ask a question on that, Madam Clerk? If you ever did require cash, would you just do it back through a reclaim the expenses type process?
Yeah, we can do it that way, or we can withdraw cash on the prepayment card.
Yeah.
So there's two options. The next one was merely a accounting journal requirement at year end to do one of the monthly salary payments. Bank reconciliations, not all of them have been signed. That's because obviously the situation we've had with meeting online and not always in the chamber. So it's just a process of catching up on getting all the paperwork signed off officially, although they've all been agreed in minutes. Again, this one here is a journal was to correct. It was miscoding at the point of entering the transaction, and the final one, the verification of public rights with regard to inspection of the accounts. Should have been up for 30 working days. It was only up for 28, which the RFO acknowledges and will correct in the future. But during that time, there were no requests from members of the public to inspect accounts.
Councillor Crumley.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wonder if in future, Madam Clerk, the printing could be a bit larger. Some of the old devils here just can't see that, even with or without our glasses. And of course, it wouldn't take up any further paperwork if it was just a bit larger.
Easier if it was landscape.
All of the mails are
Good. Okay, with that comment, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to propose that we accept the report, and I would ask through you, perhaps to the clerk specifically, did we in fact leave the notice up for the full 30 working days, so that had something come in, that we'd still been able to pick up on it? May I ask that through you?
It's highly possible. I can't recall when exactly they were taken down, but we do only do notice boards once a week, so it's very likely that it was physically in place for 30 days, although the date stated was 28.
Mr. Mayor, I would propose that we accept this report.
Is that what we're being asked to do? Is recommendation? Are we approving it or just noting and receiving it?
We're receiving it. My apologies.
And you're proposing we have received it?
Yes.
I've got a seconder at the bottom, I think. All those in favour? Very much indeed. Okay, item 9, approval and adoption of committee minutes. First one up is finance and general purposes, dated 25th of April 2022. Anybody like to, Councillor Lister's absence?
I was present, and I do indeed agree that they are a true record.
Thank you. And seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favour? Very much. Moving on to the Planning and Highways Committee. I'm looking for, this is the 5th of April 2022. I propose we accept the minutes, adopt the minutes.
So propose.
Thank you. Do I have a second of that, Councillor Jeffrey? All those in favour? Minutes, thank you. And then I have events committee minutes, dated the 11th of April. Beg your pardon, yeah.
Sorry, did that include the scope dates? The 20th of the 5th.
Make the 26th. Thank you for helping me. So I'm now going to ask again, Councillor Piper, if you could.
I so propose.
I propose, thank you very much. And Councillor Huntley, all those in favour of this is the 26th of April. Now I'm on to events.
Yes, yes, I would like to recommend to the council the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of whenever it was. It was the 11th, yeah. on the 11th of April. Thank you.
And I'm happy to second that as I was Vice Chair. All those in favour? Through approve adoption now. Now, the outgoing mayor has his final time in the sunshine to remind us what he's been doing. Something coming up on the screen as well, isn't there? There we are.
No.
Lovely. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. March the 29th was the opening of Langford Way, which you may recall was a road being named in the memory of Malcolm Langford, who was a great servant to the town, much loved person. And as you can see from the crowd that were gathered there, you know, he was very well respected in the community. Following that particular naming, the council provided refreshments in the Swan Pub, and everybody took part. It was a really nice event.
A day for a sun hat.
Just in case.
It was a bit cool.
Yeah. Yes, on March the 29th, also, the Berkshire Maestros, the Junior Music Festival, was in the Anvil, and our events deputy manager had her daughter taking part, and I was there. This is something you'll find out for yourself, Mr. Mayor, but I was sitting there and there were a group of young girls right up the back there, and I was being pointed out, and they were all waving. It was quite a nice little event, that one. Anyway, then moving on to the pals at Kent School, they meet in the special SEN unit. A group of very dedicated people there working with children with very great learning disabilities and physical disabilities as well. And it was a lovely, lovely event to go to. And I'm sure they would appreciate anybody actually stopping in just to see the work that they do. On April the 1st, again, Newbury Town Council Silver Anniversary. It was a nice event, I have to say. And on April the 2nd, the first Thatcham Scouts had a new squirrels group. And for those who aren't familiar with the squirrels, they're the very little tiny ones. They are 4-year-olds who are coming in before they get to the age where they become brownies and rainbows, etc.
Not red squirrels.
No.
No.
On April the 7th was the Heritage Working Party, the launch of the QR code trail. And as you can see, our deputy mayor, now mayor, was along on that event, and I'll leave it up to him to report on that one. And then Thatcham Memorial Hall, I got to go out litter picking, Very engaged. We didn't actually pick up very much because they've been doing it for 2 weeks. So there wasn't really much left for us to pick. On Thatcher, on the 7th of February, Thatcham Photographic Club had a very interesting competition. It was a mix and match. And if I just describe it to you, they had projectors and they had a men's team and a ladies team. And we'll start off with the men would put up a picture, and the women then they had 30 maximum photographs that they had. That was all they had. They couldn't go through archives. They had to pre-select 30 images. So the men would put up an image, the ladies would have to try and match it in some way, either through the colour, the content, the shape, the patterns, the different things. I was there as the judge to decide whether or not they got the match right. So, but fortunately, I was able to use my own expertise on that. So it was a lovely event, and I have to say the ladies won. Then moving on, the King's Head Pub had an Easter Fun Day. That isn't the real Spider-Man there, by the way. Because he was actually working somewhere else. I know that for a fact.
He's an actual blues brother, though.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually my Madness hat. It looks a little blues brother, but Madness. Yeah, and then on April the 21st, the flag raising for Her Majesty the Queen's birthday took place here at the Town Council. And then you may have seen in the Newbury Weekly News, the Volunteer Centre's handy bus, driven by our esteemed colleague here, Mr. Foster, Councillor Foster, sorry. And that was nice. It was a nice, I mean, the bus is sitting out there now. It's the dark blue one. It's a very nice bus that they've got. And we actually took a ride out to Walhampton, where the ladies were all waiting to get on the bus to go and do their shopping. And then we all came back in Gary Paulson's Mini.
It was tight.
Then April the 22nd was G&T Disco Night. There I am, rolling back the years there. But the 3 DJs from left to right was Tony Christian, Graham Pocock, and then Chris Pearce, are all Kennet Radio presenters. They like to be, well, they like to call themselves DJ, but the management like them to call them presenters. But they put on the disco, and I know a number of people here were at the event. It was a fantastic evening, lots of fun, and we hope to do it again sometime soon.
He's still got his shirt on, it?
Yeah. Raising nearly £600 at one event alone, and that was only with 40 people there. So you know, if we've got more people, who knows? Then we go on to May the 7th. We're getting close here. Thatcham Harriers Memorial Match for Jane Cleary.
You missed this one out.
So I did flip the page over. There you go. Yeah, it's the civic reception. The 2 gentlemen that you see there received the mayor's badge because, and along with Hina here, she received the mayor's badge, and Phil Cannings, because I genuinely felt that during this last year, as we emerged from COVID, we relied on the media, the radio and the printed media, to help push our message out to what we were doing for the community. And that was put out there and greatly received. As I said at the civic reception, you know, the amount of people that were saying to me, "Oh, crikey, John, I saw 4 pictures in the paper this week," you know, and it was something that, you know, it made other people in other areas realise how much was going on in Thatcham. So I was very grateful for them. Thank you very much for doing that. And so I felt it was appropriate at that time we should acknowledge their contribution for the mayor's office. Not me, it was for the mayor's office and getting that message out there. And then on May the 5th, at the annual town meeting of the parish hall, the lady there, Iris Matthews, I knew Iris, and you'll see from the photograph, when I was, there I am, right in the middle, the small one there, little, that's him, yeah.
Is that you?
Yeah, it is, look, knees and everything. So Iris, Is that painting? You had to stand still for about 30 seconds. But yeah, Iris was the leader, well, she was the deputy leader of Thatcham Life Boys, as was at the time. They later became the Junior Boys Brigade. She'd been playing the organ from the age of 15 in the church, the URC church, and she only retired earlier this year from doing that role. So she'd put in a lifetime to the community of Thatcham. And as I said, as soon as I mentioned to people who used to be Life Boys, I said, you remember Iris? Oh yeah, of course, I remember Iris. So they went out there at a time before, we had, having to do all the checks and everything, the risk assessments. They were out there taking a group of lads out, sometimes 30 of us at a time, going on these weekly holidays. And it was fantastic. It was one of these life experiences. It wasn't just a holiday, it was a life experience. So we shall all be forever grateful to Iris and the others who helped us do that. Then moving on to May the 7th, I went to a memorial match for Jane Cleary. Jane sadly passed away through cancer, but her husband was the manager of Thatcham Harriers. One of her sons plays for them. And after she passed away, one of your charities, Mr. Mayor, Daisy's Dreams, was supporting the family a great deal. So they wanted to show some appreciation to Daisy's Dreams. So they put on this match, did a fundraise, and all the funds are actually going to be given to Daisy's Dreams in appreciation for everything they did for the family. And then finally, on May the 8th, the mayor making ceremony, which of course you were all at. And there we can see what a wonderful event that was. And then the last couple of pictures.
Yeah.
There we go. 2012 on the right, sorry. And on the left, the smallest girl there that was her now. So it was nice to get that. In fact, I had planned on getting all three of them there. But my son's girlfriend, that takes precedence over going and getting your photograph taken with her. But anyway, that's my report. Thank you very much, sir.
Wow.
It's different. You haven't lost any hair.
To the GMT first, which is this one. Looking at them, I figured that the records might be Perry Como and Lonnie Donegan.
They were. Yes.
No, actually, he was playing mostly sort of 80s.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah. We had some status. We had some
I'm off now.
You mentioned ladies several times, and also ladies looking at you at Kennet School. I have to tell you, the last time a lady unknown to me actually showed me any attention was offering me her seat on the London Under. Probably the nicest experience. So I said, no, I'm standing up, I'm okay. My hardened arteries are managing to keep it. Good. And then, yes, I did myself go on the Heritage Trail with John. And that was an excellent experience. I particularly like the blue plaque on the, I'm going to forget the pub now, aren't I? But King's Head, which I was very attractive. And then if you haven't been around the trail, I expect most of you have, it's well worth wandering around and putting the QR code up. And you've done a lot of work on that, I know. And it was an excellent thing. I hope we can extend it and keep moving it beyond the town centre council, Jeff.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just say one thing. There are people, possibly even in this chamber at this moment, that don't actually manage to use QR codes, but you can get a leaflet with all that information on it, and you can read it and hold it. It's wonderful.
Absolutely.
It will catch on.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. I think, yeah. So that's reports number 10. Number 11, reports from the surgeries. From firstly, yes, it was a surgery that Councillor Rice and myself were at. We've been bringing the papers up. So the first one there, speeding on Safe Road, potholes repaired. Have we passed that on to West Berkshire? We have. Okay, it's interesting. I don't know if you come by a lower way, any of you tonight, but Pound Lane is closed. And I turned up there only to find the sign telling me it's closed. I'd asked one of the district councillors, I could ask myself, of course, if they could put road closed, Pound Lane closed on Lower Way itself. Because people are turning up there and then having to turn round. So I'm looking at Councillor Ivan nodding. Would you?
Looking back at you, I'll ask the ward member to. No, I will.
I thought we might be a bit closer to the ruling group. But, I'll leave that to them. Okay. Next one. Melbourne Road. That one is just by the Great Barn Court, and it's something I will take up. Good. I'll take an action now to actually take that up with highways. We haven't reported it, but I'll take it up myself. The next one. You do. Was no travel checks and cars parking all day using 2-hour wait time. Again, we've made West Berkshire Council aware of it. Perhaps they can send a civil enforcement officer around occasionally. The next one, car parks on pavement, make it difficult to get out of driveways. This is an old chestnut, really. It needs probably a bit of a public awareness campaign, really, about parking on pavements, blocking driveways. Yeah, that's Fighting Bells. Councillor Dillon.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in terms of the parking on the pavements, I think all of us can name roads in our wards where it becomes a blight, either at particular times of day, so on school runs, you see it on Sagecroft Road where I live, at the Wylands, or you sometimes then you see it in the evenings when the commuters have come home and they start filling the estates up with their cars, which have been off of the estate all day. But actually, Community United and Alice from that organisation has recently been doing some social media campaigns on that, and actually asking for more of a community awareness around that, but not necessarily a change of the law, because the law prohibits it anyway. It's the mounting of the pavement which is against the law, not the parking. But it really does need people to be considerate, because Eleanor is still only, she'll be 5 in July, so we're not that far away from having used the strollers. And when you've got curbs that dip up and down, plus then you've got parked cars on them, it's an absolute nightmare to be able to safely get around. So I think more does need to be done. I think it's hard for a council to do more without lots of restrictions, which then potentially dispels it. But actually, I think it's down to us as individual car owners to be considerate that, look, when you do park on a curb, just park on the curbstone. Don't park on the whole of the pavement so that you can't let people by. I think if we were more considerate, we could tackle the problem as a community.
Okay, Richard Crump.
Thank you, Chairman. The instant poor parking at Fylingdales, that cropped up on Saturday when I was with Jeremy. I went round, had a look, and there's a car, I think, with 2 wheels off out of 4, and the remainder is jacked up, an absolute eyesore, part on the road and part on the pavement. I wouldn't want to be living next to it, so I really hope that something can be done, get the council to slap a notice on it saying, we think this has been done, this is West Berks, and therefore they can turn it away and get rid of it. So I just mentioned, hope that some action can be taken.
Thank you. Was that your point?
Thank you. We actually raised this in the annual meeting with the inspector, and there was a couple of things. One, apparently there may be new laws and regulations coming, but that's irrelevant because they're not here today. But if they are actually physically obstructing the pavement, it is actually a police matter, and please do so. Finding it on that jacked up car, that's actually a danger. That's a health and safety issue. If there are children going anywhere near that car and it's propped up on, I imagine, bricks or something suitable, I think we should raise this very strongly with West Berkshire Council as the Highways Authority, say this is a danger to the public and they should actually take action on this for safety. Inconvenience is very important, but from what's been described to me, that's actually dangerous and should be looked at more promptly than we are discussing around here. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Mayor.
We have reported it to West Berkshire, and we hopefully come back with an explanation. John Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, as Councillor Cotton says, it was brought up at the annual meeting about pavement parking. I had been approached by Mr. Derek Riley, who's a wheelchair user, who pointed this out. And it was nice that we did in fact have the police officers there who could, tell us that it is illegal if they're obstructing the road. So, the message to go out and Alice, she said, well, perhaps Thatcham could be, a leader in this, but it's not something that we have the ability to do. It's not our legislation, it's the national legislation. So, but perhaps if we can, in some way, encourage people and make people more aware that their actions could be impeding somebody who like a wheelchair user then has to go out into the road. That is something that I think we could possibly flag up. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we just go through the others? Overgrowing, we reported that. Then I think that's it. I was asked, by one of the CPSOs, who said, can we get or ask highways to repaint the look left signs on our raised ramps across the Broadway? They're not pedestrian crossings, and people generally understand that. But there was white lining on them, white writing, which said look left. And I think we should ask highways to reinstate those, which is a nice safety feature. I think they should be on their to-do list.
Someone said you look right on the other side though, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And then I've got only two surgeries, I think, weren't I there? Do we have any reports from West Berkshire District Councillors? Councillor Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think members of this council will be aware that there have been occasions when I have said things which were critical of West Berkshire Council and what they were achieving with us. And West Berkshire Council, as we know, is under Conservative Party control. What I wanted to say today was that we have actually got cross-party cooperation with regards to the planning issue at Midgham. It's not technically in Thatcham. No, it's not technically that. It's not in Thatcham, but it is absolutely adjacent to us down at Culthrop. And Councillor Hardwell-Walter and I are going to represent the town council position at the planning committee on Wednesday, opposing the plan to put it in several hundred HGV movements per week, which is the way that it's set up at the moment. The A4 is not suitable for it. We know it's not suitable for it. And I sincerely hope that Eastern Area Planning will realise that it's not suitable for it as well on Wednesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Just literally a point of information, I'm not discussing this at all. It's 980 lorry movements per day.
980.
Diesel lorries. They're not going to go electric anytime soon.
No. Thank you. Councillor Dillon.
Yeah, thank you. Just three brief things, Mr. Mayor. This committee supported my call from residents for a 30-mile-an-hour at Cold Ash Hill for the turn at the south end. The residents there now are keen for us to do a petition, so I'll be supporting them in producing that and then collating signatures. Would hope as many of you would sign it as well. The flood forum. Obviously, we've worked in great partnership over many years with West Berkshire Council, the Environment Agency, on surface water management. And I think the flood forum and the town council are keen to see those projects completed by the end of 2023. And so I've asked for a meeting to be pulled together of the key parties, and we're just trying to get a date for about 2 weeks' time on that. Officers of West Berkshire have been responsive when I've emailed in on that. And then the other one is that West Berkshire Council as a whole are doing a governance review. It has lots of boards at West Berkshire Council, and it has corporate board, and it has programme board, and Steve will know about most of these because I think he has to go to most of them. But lots of duplication of reports. And so there's a genuine desire following the local government peer review in November 2019 that you sat on, Councillor Brooks at the time, to try and make it more efficient. And so a working group has been formed, and we're hopeful that by July there will be some recommendations that come out of that.
Thank you, Chairman. Three things I'd like to update members on. Two are from the always exciting and glamorous world of waste and recycling. And of those, firstly, plastic. The plastic contain the pots, tubs and trays container in the Kingdom Centre, the Waitrose car park. Very happy to say it is, and many of us here will be well aware of this, is extremely well used, and the uptake since it was launched as a trial over 18 months ago has been really, really good. Something of the order of 10 tonnes of plastic, which in the great scheme of things is small, but of course plastic is very light, has been recycled through that. It is, again, very well used. If residents who occasionally grumble to me saying, oh, the container is full, if you would be so kind as to tell them that it is routinely emptied on a Sunday, and so the best time of the week to visit is earlier in the week, and so hopefully the demand can be smoothed out. And obviously we look forward to more frequent uptake and indeed more of these around the district. It's quite hard to find the right site, but a very promising start to that. We're looking for more sites, particularly in the east of the district, and making this part of people's habits to recycle all plastics rather than just those can be recycled at home. The second thing,
You want to take Councillor
Can you put a sign on the bin? But if we all speak to 2 or 3, I just, a sign on the bin saying this gets emptied on a Sunday.
Good point. Yes, thank you, Lee. I'll pass on to Paul.
But is the same facility available at the Padworth site? Is there a thing there for it?
There is, but of course the difference of Padworth is you have to book a slot, as with.
No,
that's why.
I went there and met my booked slot to do other bits and bobs, and I took my bag of different types of plastic, and the guy there, I don't know, just chucking with other stuff, just like, okay, let's say he wasn't most excited. So it was, I don't know whether
Yes,
yeah, I was as enthusiastic about it as you and I.
We're very keen on it. Yes. Yeah. No, thank you. That's good feedback, Paul. The other item of waste is we're not there yet, but encouraging progress on the food waste recycling, which is planned, and it's still looking positive and likely that we'll be able to introduce a separate collection before the end of the year. There's been a nationwide surge of councils wanted to do this, and a consequent squeeze on suppliers who supply special trucks to do it. But so far, touch wood, it's still on track, and later this year that'll be unveiled. The third thing I'd like to mention is regarding problem reporting, particularly some of the surgeries that the Mayor went through earlier. The online reporting tool at the council is going to be improved and updated quite soon, certainly by early next month, possibly this month, and it will not require any QR codes, which Councillor Jeffrey, who's probably just missed that point, might have missed out. But even if it doesn't require QR codes, what it will add is faster and better reporting to our contractor Volker, and most importantly, a picture will be sent back if you wish to you as the resident with a photograph of your job was fixed, here's the evidence we've done it, and please let us know if you're not happy. So something good to look forward to, initially only for roads problems, typically potholes and related. In the fullness of time, that will expand to other types of issues, for example, overgrowing hedges and pieces and parts.
Councillor Jeffrey.
Please forgive me. The thing that I wanted to say was that, and certainly until this new caddy system comes in, please remind everybody that you can put your waste food in the green bin, even if you are not paying the £50 a year. And I can assure you that I do that, but there's no reason to not be recycling all your food waste anyway through that green bin until such time as this new system comes in.
Thank you. Councillor, I went to get rid of a lot of paper at the Kingsland Centre, and there was
Too much detail.
Old council papers, I think they were. Very big green container there with no writing on at all, 4 letter boxes, and I didn't know where to put. People are just indiscriminately putting stuff in there. No stencil writing at all. So I did wrote to Kofi Annan about it. I don't mean Kofi Annan.
Very high level interaction. So, so those containers, again, are obviously supplied by Veolia, which is a big national firm, and not all their containers are appropriately stenciled up. And it's a good point. I think one of you mentioned, I think you did. Signage both on them and around them would be good. So yes, I'll pass it on.
Very good. Thank you for those reports. We now move on to appointees to outside bodies and any feedback and reports back. Lady Francis's council order is Cotton.
No report.
No report. Thank you.
Cotton.
Winchcomb's Thatcham Foundation, Councillor Jennifer Walker will hold over. Thatcham Relief in Need will hold over. And charity and Thatcham Brogue Charities, Mr. Chris Drews, nothing we received. Okay, so that item noted. Item 12. Leader and deputy leader to consider the appointment of a leader and a deputy leader of the council for the municipal year 2022-23. Councillor Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose Councillor Lee Dillon to be the leader of council this coming year. It's a job that he has actually done before, so I think he's probably got the measure of it and will be able to carry it through adequately for us. And I certainly do think that in this coming year, there is an awful lot of stuff that we really do want to get done. 2 years of COVID, I think the council has done tremendous work. I think officers have worked their socks off to take us through COVID and to be supporting the whole community. But it has literally been a 2-year stop in all the sorts of things that we would have been getting on with in the normal run of things. And I think if we can make this last year of this council one where we can try and do some catching up on the jobs that have needed to be done, and I think that is something that Lee would lead us in very well indeed. So I'd like to propose Councillor Lee Dillon to be our leader for the coming year.
Thank you very much. Would that find a second?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to second that.
Are there any other nominations for leader of the council?
Can I just add a point to this?
You're nominating yourself, you're leading.
No, it's not. It is just to say that I believe Councillor Dillon aspires to higher than adequate, and I believe he has ability to deliver higher than adequately.
I was with you, concerned, yes.
The piece is broken out. I'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour of Councillor Dillon, leader of the council for coming year. Thank you. Unanimous if you put your hand up, but we'll call it unanimous anyway. And then we need a deputy leader of council, Councillor Dillon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to members for that vote. In terms of being the leader, you'll see when we go to the committees, actually not suggesting much change around the committees. Some vice chairs stepping up. I won't take on the traditional role of being chair of finance and general purposes. We'll be proposing Councillor Cole for that. So we're really looking in this last year of this particular term of office to make sure that we've got everyone in the right jobs with the right skill sets. So we're all driving the council forward together and building on the great work that David and Mike and John have done as the leadership team and Jeff as the deputy mayor over the previous few years. And that brings me on, Mr. Mayor, then to my nomination for deputy leader. And to help with that continuity, we have the big challenge of the local plan in the next year. Simon, as the chair of planning, has done sterling work on that and has been supported by David Lister. And so I would like to propose David Lister to be the deputy leader. A real particular focus on that nuanced detail around the local plan and making sure that the Thatcham voices are heard through that period. Thank you.
Okay, does that find a second?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to second that.
Are there any other nominations, Deputy Leader of Council? Councillor Field, not. Can I have a show of hands, all those in favour of Councillor Lister as Deputy Leader of Council for the coming year? Thank you very much. And that concludes item 12. Item 13. Would it be you introducing this, Mel? We're now putting our standing committee and subcommittee together. Would it be you?
I think it's going to be. I think Mr. Mayor, it'll be a bit of a double act.
Yeah. So kick us off then, Mel. Here's our first one.
So, yeah, so Mr. Mayor, this one is proposed as outlined on the screen, as I alluded to, with Mike being the chair, our step as vice chair as the council. So I would propose that as the terms of reference as written, and then the membership. The terms of reference as written, which are in your papers, and the membership as displayed on the screen, Mr. Mayor.
And the chair and vice chair is elected at the first meeting?
No, the chair and vice chair are elected by this full council on advice from the clerk.
Then I would propose that we take these one at a time and we.
Committee by committee, Mr. Chairman.
Committee.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would propose that the terms of reference, the appointment and the chair and vice chair for FNGP be as displayed on the screen now.
Right. Does that find a second? Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. All those in favour? FNGP. We then have recreation amenities.
Okay, so again, no change to the terms of reference. A slight change here. So this will now read Mike Cole, Jeremy Cottam, Lourdes Cottam, Paul Field, Mark Lillycrop, Simon Pike, Keith Woodhams, Owen Jeffrey in the first Conservative field there, and then Steve Ardar Water in the second one. So I knew so that's the proposal for that one, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Does that find a second then? Thank you. Councillor Boyd. All those in favour? Planning and highways.
Yeah, so this one, the terms of reference on this one are slightly different from what's in your papers, Mr. Mayor. If Madam Clerk could go to the second bullet point, this one therefore has some reference in the local plan and the role that the committee will play in that. We wanted to draw that out in this year in particular, given the focus on it. And then if we could go to the membership, please, Madam Clerk. So this one, again, I'm just going to read off of here. So I have got John Boyd, Richard Crumley, Mark Lillycrop, David Lister, Simon Pye, Jen Walker, Keith Woodhams, Richard Crumley, and then myself as the independent / conservative.
Oh, yeah, least affection.
More common sense freaking out.
Independence. Are you going to put me on? Are you going to put me on? Are you?
You're already on it. You're there, look. Keith Woodhams.
I see. It's not on the sheet in front of me.
No, it's reading those names there.
Yeah, I see it now. Thank you.
We were offering our colleagues from across the spectrum more seats on the committees, but I don't think they were necessarily welcome. So we're filling them back up. We're filling them back up. Yeah.
Thank you. And then we've got events.
Okay, so on this one, Mr. Mayor, we are suggesting that the membership at the top is reduced from 9 to 8, unless there is any member who's not on the names that I read out who wishes to take a seat on the committee. So my list is John, yourself, Mr. Mayor, Mike Cole, Lourdes, Ellen. Yeah, so it's all of those except Councillor Walker. If there's a member in the chamber who would like to take a seat, I suggest they do. If not, I would propose that we reduce the membership from 9 to 8, which won't affect the quorum, which will still be 3 full members.
And again, did that find a second? Councillor Jeffrey. All those in favour? Very good. Surprisingly quickly, I think we're done.
No, Mr. Chairman, we're not. No, there's more committees.
Good heavens.
So moving to the Town Centre Committee, Mr. Mayor.
I haven't got that in my paper.
We don't propose any changes to the terms of reference from what is written, and the committee for this year is proposed to be, I think that one is correct on the screen. Yeah, that one is fine. No changes on that one.
Okay. So does that find a second then?
I would make a second.
Councillor Boyd, all those in favour? All done?
And staffing committee, Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
propose no change to terms of reference, and the membership for that one will be as proposed.
Maybe a modification as Mark Lidcock is the chair of RNA. It would be
Yeah.
more sensible to change them. I'll be substituting.
If that's agreed. Well, have you got that?
Propose with that amendment, Mr. Chairman.
That amendment?
Mr. Mayor.
Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. All those in favour?
Well, Mr. Mayor, the last of the committee before we move to the outside bodies, this is the grant subcommittee. Terms of reference as screen membership to be councillor, so instead of councillor Walker, councillor Owen Jeffreys.
I have that as a proposal. I'll look at the seconder. Councillor Jeffrey, and all those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Okay, to move on, or you've got subcommittee?
No, outside bodies now, Mr. Mayor,
Outside bodies I've got.
I believe. Yeah, so that's item 13 done, I believe, Mr. Mayor.
Emergency working party apparently leader.
Oh, that's not in my pack.
So 7 members, 3 is a quorum. If you go down to membership, this would be the normal makeup of the chairs. Are we comfortable with that?
Mr. Mayor, I would propose that and then Richard Crumley to be the Conservative member.
They're both good men in a tight spot.
Yeah.
Don't need to phone a friend. Thank you. Have you got that, Mel? So I've got that as a proposal. Councillor Boyd, I'm sure, can second this.
I'd like to second that.
Those in favour, Emergency Working Party, thank you. And Mel will tell me if I'm done. Because you now say I've got strategy review working. Are you done?
Anytime in my pack.
We can appoint this one.
Yeah, we'd propose as listed, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Does that seconded by Councillor Field, I think now?
So you coming?
Yes, seconding. All those in favour? Thank you. Mel, tell me when I'm done. We are actually deleting this policy review working party.
The first efficiency of my leadership reign, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Mel, can I move under outside bodies? I can now, okay.
You're really keen.
I've got the document in the pack. Is this the one I'm to?
Just highlighted in yellow the changes or the items that we need to discuss, but the rest is as.
So the only ones I've got here. I see you've got them there. Let's have a quick look.
So, Mr. Mayor, if it would help, I think we would propose them as they are on the screen, apart from if we could go down to Thatcham Youth, which has 2 town council appointees. Councillor Jennifer Walker would need replacing. So if there's a member here who would like to go on to the Thatcham Youth at all. Councillor Field just raised his hand there, Mr. Mayor.
Unless.
Once you raise your hand. I think it was very, very quick.
We watched the video. I think you just.
I think Councillor Field has it.
Yeah.
So as hopefully we've got some changes here. Or
Yeah, just to confirm that Councillor Field was happy to still be in a field.
It's a field.
Sack the leader.
We've made a suggestion here as well, members will see around the flood forum steering group and the surface water management plan. Those 2 bodies have 2 different representatives on them, but in reality are concurrent bodies supporting each other. So we've made a suggestion that the flooding issue has been adopted by both parties as an issue that we want to solve cross-party and around the table, and we have done. So we've suggested a Liberal Democrat and a Conservative member go on that.
Yes, and thank you, Leader, for the recognition. As you know, I've been involved rather sporadically over many years with the forum. Unfortunately, it clashes with many West Berkshire meetings, so very happy to step in. I will try my best to attend as often as possible.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, Madam Clerk, if we maybe could also set up a couple of subs then for that committee with the agreement of the Surface Water Management Group. I don't know if Councillor Crumley would be happy to be a sub for Councillor Ardar Water on that.
Yes.
And maybe Councillor Jeffrey would be a sub for Councillor Lillycrop.
Yep.
Thank you.
Appropriate to be a sub for a platform, isn't it?
Are you looking
To be a sub for a platform.
Councillor Rice has confirmed that she's happy to maintain that position.
Yes,
Yeah.
evidently she is. And then the West Berkshire Citizen Convention.
Yeah, so on this one, I don't think we've got somebody to step up to fill Councillor Walker's position. At the moment, Councillor Ellen Crumley is the named sub. So I think what we'll do is we'll reach out to Ellen and say, would you sub the next meeting? And if you're happy to take that over as the appointee, we can then get a sub for Ellen. Thank you.
Moving right along.
That's the last one, I think.
Scroll down. No, I think we're done.
That's it, yeah.
If you've got those. So those are the proposals. I think I will put that to the vote just so that people have bought into it. Do I have a seconder for those as outlined? Councillor Jeffrey. All those in favour, those appointments to outside bodies. Then the calendar of meetings, which again in
Proposed motion
paper is your pack, so proposed by the Leader of Council. I have a seconder, Councillor Jeffrey. All those in favour of the calendar? And the survey rota you also have. Again.
Yeah, happy to move that, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Lillycrop, just spreading the seconding around.
A minute. You know, who mean it.
I vote against. All those in favour of the council survey rota?
Vice Councillor to limit fun on the field, not involved in any inappropriate.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, if I wouldn't mind, I did an online surgery once before, and if anybody else would like to do an online, I'm happy to swap with a face-to-face.
A real life one.
Yeah,
I've got Councillor Foster.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to swap with Councillor Boyd if that's what we'd like. So he would do the event in May, the top right there, at Crookham Park. Is that correct?
Yep.
And I would do the one in January at the bottom centre.
Again, I'll make sure Clark has got that. Yes, so with that amendment.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I would say that normally with these, the officers pencil names in, but we swap throughout the year. So I don't think we're bound by this if council votes. I think we're voting for the dates and the times and the locations rather than the attendees.
It's a fair point, but I think that
one's nailed.
is nailed on. And we know from experience that if we have some difficulties, we adapt and swap and make it work. Thank you. So I think I'll through that most exciting bit of the meeting. And on to standing orders of financial regulation. Now, I don't think you've printed them, maybe, but what you're saying is we should, your recommendation, we confirm and re-adopt without amendment. They are fit for purpose. And just tell us a little bit more about who will be using them.
Mr. Mayor, so the policy review working party took quite a bit of time last financial year reviewing both the financial regs and standing orders. Councillor Pike had a great deal of input into that. They were extensively reviewed and adopted by council to the point where I don't believe there are any changes currently needed. So recommend that they are adopted as is.
Happy to move that, Mr. Mayor.
Proposed by Councillor Dillon. Second.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pike. All those in favour? Thank you. Then renewal of insurance policy, again, Mel, this one, tack on this. Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting of Finance and General Purposes, it was hoped that we would have all of the quotes to hand for the committee to be able to make a straight recommendation to council. Unfortunately, there was a delay in Zurich producing the claims history for the alternative broker to quote against. That happened last week, and we actually received, I think, late on Friday, the alternative quotes in time for this meeting. So to summarise, for several years we've had a 3-year agreement with Zurich that comes in slightly cheaper. Zurich's quotation for a 3-year agreement is 7976, as detailed in the report. That's actually slightly less than we are currently paying. The RFO has conducted an extensive review. We've had all the properties revalued, and we've gone through all of the contents and did a very thorough review. So the level of cover has increased, but the premium has gone down with Zurich. And the alternatives that we've received today, this one here. So this is a broker who went out to a number of alternative insurers, and this is the premiums that they have come forward with today. So as you can see, Zurich is considerably a better value than these. So mine and the RFO's recommendation is to enter into another 2-year agreement with Zurich, who we have found have served us very well over a number of years.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think a saving of £592.30p in the year is to be welcomed. But for me, actually, the bullet point underneath it is more important in terms of day to day. And it says they've been our insurance provider for several years, have provided a good service with competitive quotes, fine, and all claims have been paid when raised. And what we need is an insurance company we've got a good relationship with and we can trust. Because when things go wrong, they normally go wrong across maybe a wide part of the country, because it could be storm damage or something like that. You need loss adjusters quick so our residents can have their services back up and running quickly. So I would support officers' recommendations.
And second. All those in favour? Thank you very much. And finally, risk strategy. I'm told at the previous meeting I drew attention to some of the risk register, strategic risk, and how they were scored. It's been taken away.
Just to briefly, this was reviewed by the Finance and General Purposes Committee at its last meeting. Councillor Dillon gave some additional input into that conversation, and both the changes from full council and FNGP have been incorporated. I would just highlight on the page 7, page 6 and page 7, some additional items be added to the risk register. They are there, but in very basic terms at the moment. We haven't had a great deal of time between the last FNGP meeting. It's been year end, so it's been rather full on for the RFO to put any real time and effort into the detail of these items, but they have been added or enhanced over time. The appendix has been added for the property that they represent or managed. So it's now with those amendments put forward to as a recommendation to adopt.
I recommend to adopt. Can I get a proposer, please?
Happy to.
Councillor Dillon, second, Councillor Pike. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Excellent. 90-minute meeting.
Get better.
And I'll be back meeting.